It's like one of the crazy superpowers of music is always like bringing people together, and especially these days in a world that like feels ever so divided and ever so lonely, even though we're technically more connected than ever. Like, yeah, so like in your life and your experience, like starting from now and then maybe we can make our way back. Like, what do you feel like a weight to do that with your music at all?
I love playing by myself. I love kind of exploring and you know finding interesting harmonies and rhythms and all that kind of stuff. But really, the thing that to me is the most rewarding is like when you're just playing with a band or another person and you just get into this space. It's like being in the flow state where the music is just coming and it's like it's there's this energy in between. It's not from any one individual. It's like this thing in the room that everybody taps into all of a sudden, and we're all kind of like in this magical space together. It sounds so kind of like, new agey, but
No, 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 no.
but it's really
Yeah.
true. I mean, that's really like the thing, I think, the best part about getting to play this kind of music and like sort of the point of all of it, right? Is
Yeah.
to connect to people. And then of course, like for the audience member or the listener, they're another part of that circle too. That energy
Yep,
is coming
yeah.
back from them also.
It's like I was talking to a friend of mine about this because we were talking about like why this happens like a little bit uniquely with the music performance over other things, and in some ways like one of the most subjective things we experience is the way we feel, like the way we experience like the flow of time itself, like just like time flies when you're having fun or something.
Yeah.
But when we're like at a concert, in some way like through the music we're all like connected to the same time in a way, which I feel like is such a, I was like, maybe that's what it is. Like we're all like locked into this one thing in at least in a good state. But even in your music, I feel like because you've studied so extensively and like so many cultures, you've gone to Cuba, you spent some time at Swarnabhumi in India where you
Yeah.
were teaching,
Yep.
and I was looking up, and you studied with the same piano teacher when you were young, who was from Ukraine, and then you studied here in America. Like it's all of these cultures colliding and coming into like one place. Do you feel like the conscious like strain of like not strain like like thread of like negotiating that, or do you feel like you just like it happens? Like what's your view on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's interesting because I guess one of the things I think about sometimes is like, there are some people who get really deeply immersed in the music of a particular culture or a tradition, and they just like, they find that's like their thing,
Yeah.
and they stay there and they just kind of make a life in that tradition, and it's amazing. And I've never quite been able to be one of those people. I sort of envy them in a way because it's like I love jazz. I love straight ahead jazz so much, and it's such a part of like who I am. But there are these other pieces that just, and I mean, I'm one of so many people for whom this is true. But I find all this other stuff that's so interesting and kind of calls to me too. And it's hard to find a way to not kind of like dabble, I guess. Like, how do you find the stuff that's interesting, but still keep, like you said, a thread between
Yeah.
them? And I sometimes think about like, wow, what if I had gotten off this train, like, like you said at Swarnabhumi? I think about that sometimes. Like,
Yeah.
I could have moved to India and like stayed there and gotten really deep into like that world and that scene, and that what an interesting life to imagine, like what that would have been.
Yeah.
But then all the music that I did since then, all the experiences wouldn't have happened, which after that I went to the Monk Institute, now Herbie Hancock Institute, and then started playing with Jenny Scheinman, and so it's like then I would have missed out on all of that. So but it is, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Like, how do you knit?
Yeah.
You find the thread, I think, just through what do you love? What do you
Yes.
love, and you just keep trying to go towards that. I think.
It's like you're the thread.
Yeah. I guess so.
Yeah.
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 I mean, everyone has a story like that.
Yeah.
Like, everyone's
Yeah.
life has like so many different time periods and like people they're connected to, and it's amazing. Like every single person has something with all of that richness to it.
100%. I want to circle back to Swarnabhumi in a second, but before that, you spoke like very like you hinted at tradition and like how there are all of these many traditions going on. And to me, like when I was in India and I was thinking about studying jazz, one of the big reasons like I was drawn to jazz was because the tradition felt like it was like a melting pot in a way of like, okay, you can bring your own thing and we're here. Like it felt like very welcoming in that way. But then I went to jazz school. And that's not the reality in school. And I understand the point of like why it isn't. But in terms of like how you personally deal with the tradition, because I hear it so deeply in your music. You just put out a record of like Mary Lou Williams and Thelonious Monk's music, which is like, you could say like the beginning of modern jazz, so to say. Like it was like the first Blue Note record
Fair.
and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's fair.
So like, what's your relationship with the jazz tradition to begin with, and then I guess we could branch out.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And, you know, when you were talking about going to jazz school,
Yeah.
it made me think. I just came from teaching, actually. Just like today, I was at the new school teaching. And I had a student where, you know, we were talking about playing, like practicing voicings and specific patterns, like, you know, kind of very methodically going through playing 2-5-1s in a certain voicing and in all keys, and, you know, sort of like eating your vegetables, like that,
100%,
that part. And he was like pushing back a little bit, kind of like, oh yeah, but, you know, I just can't see this bridging into like something I would do when I'm actually playing. Like, I don't see how this is going to become something I ever naturally hear. And so I had to think about this question of like, what is the jazz school version of what is of the tradition, and specifically like what should we learn how to do to be functional as jazz pianists, as our vocation, let's say.
Yeah.
You know, and it's totally valid to think about that, but on the other hand, like the definition of that has also changed a lot over the years, because now I'll find myself in a recording session where all of a sudden we're reading, you know, all this music with all these different meters in it, and maybe there's like, we're sort of like expected to know about some South American rhythm that we should play in, and, you know, all of this is like very much the real world of how it is to be a jazz musician now. And I mean, obviously everybody has different sets of skills, but I feel like it's even harder to define like, okay, what exactly now is the, you know, sort of essential, like it's really hard to essentialize the jazz tradition, I guess. But if I had to, I would definitely include Monk and Mary Lou Williams for sure. Like, I think you're right that they're really crucial parts of the jazz tree. And I mean, it's easier when you look back in history, because history gets written, and so then you kind of say like, well, the history book said it's this, so you know, I guess it's this. And then it's the job of people to go back and research, like, okay, what's all the stuff that got left out of those books?
100%. And I feel like to some way, which I think you've done really beautifully, is like you have to find your own version of the history, because like there's, I think, more than what one person can do in a lifetime already, even though jazz is technically a young genre. But there's already so much stuff that if you try to do all of it, you're probably going to do none of it. So like that's
Totally
there.
Yeah.
But then that branching out, because you said like, okay, because today, so I moved to New York 8 months ago now.
Oh yeah, you said, yeah.
Yeah, and I try to go for at least one show a week.
Oh wow.
But in this time, I have seen one show where people have played standards, you know, and that's really funny to me sometimes, because like what people are out there doing is mostly either their own music or someone like, or the band leader's music or whatever.
Yeah.
And I feel like writing and finding your own voice is such a big part of the tradition. Do you feel there was a point in your life where you had to like work on that instead of like, or did you find that voice through the tradition?
I mean, I think it's both, and I think standards is something that a lot of us anyway keep coming back to. You know, it's like you kind of circle around, you get away from it maybe for a while, and then you come back and you have a different perspective on how do I want to play Stella by Starlight or whatever. And I will say, depending on where you go, like which clubs you go to, you might hear more people playing more standards, you know, like it's still kind of like that in New York, which I think is maybe a little unfortunate that, you know, depending on where you live and what clubs you hang out at, you might hear people playing like really sort of so-called traditional straight ahead versus like almost like no tunes at all,
Yeah, yeah,
totally
yeah.
free,
Yeah.
versus like this complicated original
Yeah.
stuff. And I mean, there's a lot of us, but I think of myself as someone who kind of goes between those worlds because I love aspects of all of them. And,
Yeah.
you know, and you were saying like finding your own voice. I mean, I think it's what do you find from the tradition that speaks to you? Because like you said, there's just so much of it, you
Yeah.
know, that like even with the music of Monk, like different aspects of Monk's music have influenced different people, I think, in different ways. And, you know,
Definitely.
what I take from Monk might be totally different than what someone else does. And, you know, so,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that same thing is true for Duke Ellington and Wayne Shorter and, you know, all
Yeah.
these wonderful genius composers.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, but you said this idea of like different parts of New York or different clubs in New York doing all of these different things. Like, what about like? Wait, sorry. When did you move to New York?
well, I moved here in 2009, but then
Okay.
I went away.
Hmm.
Well, actually, yeah, I moved here. I sort of like moved here and then moved away and then moved back, moved away because I went to India after
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
and then came back. And then I went to LA for a couple years
Mm.
to do the Monk Institute and
Yeah.
then came back here. So, like, all told, it's been, 16 or 17 years since I first moved here. But
Yeah.
yeah.
So what what was, and I'm assuming you had like come here before to check it out or something.
Yeah, a little
Yeah,
bit. I mean,
yeah.
I lived in Boston because I went to
Okay.
the New England Conservatory,
Yeah.
and so it was pretty easy to kind of come down from Boston and
Yeah.
check out stuff in New York. Or like at that time, actually, the old Tonic was around, the Club Tonic, which was a place where you could go and hear kind of like John Zorn's sort of scene and
Yeah.
people in his orbit, and so that was somewhere I remember coming, and like the old. Like Sweet Basil and some clubs that,
Yeah.
unfortunately, there are
Don't-
generations of clubs now that like were here and are not here anymore. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I've heard the word sweet basil in so many
Yeah.
interviews. It's like sad that it's not here and I couldn't
Yeah.
ever check it out.
and
But,
then like
yeah.
other clubs that were really important when I like first really moved here
Yeah.
were like the Jazz Gallery.
Yeah.
Oh, no, sorry. Well, the Jazz Gallery is still there. I
Yeah.
mean the Jazz Standard, which was
shut during COVID, right?
amazing
Yeah.
club. Like it was so great because it was like the perfect balance of kind of a place where you could eat and it was pretty relaxed and everything, but the
Yeah.
music was really serious. And
Yeah.
but then this place, Cornelia Street Cafe, which was an institution, and there were all these artists and poets and jazz musicians and classical musicians, and so there are all these places like that were here before. But then there's these new places that come in and are now these flourishing scenes like Bar Bayou and
Yeah.
Brooklyn, and so.
Yeah. So do you remember like in those early trips when you were coming here, what drew you to move here? Was it just like, oh, everyone who wants to be a jazz musician moves to New York kind of a thing, or was it something specific?
I mean, it was like, yeah, it was mostly that,
Yeah.
basically. But also, a lot of my friends,
Yeah.
for people who I was playing with and, bands that I had joined and things like that, people were starting to move. Like, it was a very typical kind of
Yeah.
movement to, like, go to Boston and then from Boston to go to New York
Yeah.
or, I guess, Philly or whatever. Like, New York is sort of this magnet for a lot of people on the East Coast.
Yeah.
And I'm from Seattle originally, so I already had moved coasts.
Yeah.
At that point.
Yeah. So I want to go back to your time at Swarnabhumi, and then I guess we'll circle back to this point from here. So you were there in 2011?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember now exactly. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it was 2011,
Yeah.
but I had actually gone there first to visit, maybe in 2010 or so.
Oh, sweet.
And that was when I first met like Prasanna and
Yeah.
kind of got involved a little bit.
Yeah. Because I have so many friends who went to that school,
Yeah,
like in the later years.
yeah,
yeah.
it was kind of an amazing place actually.
Yeah.
That it existed at all was sort of amazing.
Yeah, there's like literally 2 schools like that in the whole country. So
Okay.
there's one in the south and one in the north.
Yeah.
Like many things in Indian culture. There's some South
Yeah.
Indian version of it and a North Indian version of it.
I was wondering about that. Like, what has the development of the jazz scene been like in India since then? Because, I haven't been back in quite a while. I miss it.
Yeah. I mean, now actually, so around how many years now? About 10-ish years ago almost. Might be a little more, might be like a year or two less. There's this really cool club that opened in Delhi called the Piano Man Jazz Club.
Yes, I know the person who opened it.
Yeah,
right?
Arjun. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that club like made it so that like a lot of people in Delhi were playing a lot of jazz, so to say, or like all the people who like had gone to Berkeley to study and came back and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And then the old school that I went to like back in New Delhi was actually run by a couple of, it's still run by these people who went to Berkeley and came back and set up a school. And now that school is like a partner with Berkeley, so you can do like 2 years at that school and
Okay.
go to Berkeley for 2 years and stuff like that.
That's the Balani brothers, you mean,
Yes,
right? Yeah.
Global
okay.
Music
Yeah,
Institute.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you know all about it.
Well, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I haven't worked with them, but actually Julian, my husband, did
Yeah.
work with them, and
Oh, wow,
yeah, so
okay.
we have some friends who are connected
Yeah.
to them also.
Yeah, like I think, do you know Sharik?
Uh,
Sharik Hassan. He's also a
yeah.
Brooklyn-based
Oh,
pianist.
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So he's like in Tarun Balani's band and stuff.
Right.
But what has ended up happening in Delhi, which like I feel like, in a way, is like what I see as like the fast forwardness of like jazz pedagogy sometimes, is because there's this jazz club and they like to program jazz music. People will like go and be like, all right, Google like top 10 jazz standards or whatever,
Yeah.
learn Autumn Leaves and, you know, like songs that they might not have any relationship to, so to say, and start playing them in like a very haphazard way. I mean, I was there. I was one of those people till like one day I was like, what am I doing? And I was like, I need to do this for real. So, which is why I came here.
Yeah.
But it has gotten better, and I feel like in a lot of ways it's evolved like it's evolving, and like now finally we're getting to a point where people are like mixing Hindi lyrics with bossa nova rhythms and
Yeah.
like or like swing rhythms and stuff, and writing songs like bilingual songs and like
Mm-hmm.
actually representing the culture, which kind of brings me back to today, because I was listening to your record with the last one from last year, and you paid tribute to Herbie Monk and Mary Lou Williams, and in a way, like the treatment of all of the songs and like all of this like almost chamber setting, so to say, like so many songs don't have bass players and stuff like that. Wait, actually, do any of the songs have bass players?
No
right?
bass on
Yeah,
the whole
no
record.
bass on the whole record.
Sorry, bass
Yeah,
players.
yeah. Like what? I felt it was like a very accurate representation of like how jazz is today, but also like grounded in the tradition. So I want like, what prompted those settings?
Yeah, good question. I mean, well, first of all, there was the idea of like Monk and Mary Lou Williams. They knew each other in real life,
Yeah,
and they were friends, and
Yeah.
you know, and she was a little older, and so she was kind of like a mentor for a lot of those bebop, you know, young bebop players
Yeah.
in a way, and I felt like their music was in conversation as well. Like you could hear, or
Definitely.
I was noticing. The more I learned about Mary Lou Williams, the more I was noticing things in her music where I would say like, "Wait a second, that reminds me of Epistrophe," or
The
you
melody
know,
of rhythming.
exactly
Yeah.
like the literal melody of rhythming and in walking
Yeah.
and swinging
Yeah.
and kind of. And actually circling back to what you were saying about what we were talking about, the tradition and the idea that the tradition gets written one way,
Yeah.
but there's all this context that we don't always dig fully into, maybe.
Yeah.
And so, like for me, I had kind of grown up with this. There was sort of this narrative about Monk sometimes that was like, oh, he was so eccentric and like he kind of came out of nowhere. And even though, you know, you hear him playing all these old 20s songs like Lulu's Back in Town or whatever, and it's like, well,
Yeah.
clearly he's coming from Stride and this and that, but there's a part of Monk that sometimes was sort of like portrayed as though, you know, it's like impossible to explain. But then when you start to hear these Mary Lou Williams ideas and harmonies, like in the Zodiac Suite and things
Yeah.
that she was doing before that, and it's like, oh yeah, no, there's definitely a connection. And some of that influence, I'm sure, went the other way as well. Like,
100%, yeah.
because she kept on growing and changing and like really staying current and modern through her whole career in this amazing way. And but yeah, so sort of contextualizing that musical conversation of the two of them, and then that led me to think like, well, it would be sort of cool to interpret that as a conversation between two musicians, like a spontaneous sort of arrangement of different duos. So that was sort of how the duo idea came out, and then naturally, because we weren't, it was like sometimes there'd be two of us playing, but then somebody else would arrive to the studio, and it's like, oh, Hamir's here. Like, let's have drums on this one, like, why not? I'm not going to lock the door and, like, not let him come in or, So, and Hamir and Ben Goldberg, who's the clarinetist on the record, have been playing together for many years, and they have an amazing rapport. They have a band called Invisible Guy, and that they play in, and anyway, so it was just fun to kind of like explore these other relationships between different musicians in the Bay Area, and then try to insert myself into them sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, and so that record where like you were like, oh, this person just came in, let me let them in, or when you're working with Alison Miller and you're like, okay, we're gonna play free and start a tune at some point, and stuff like that. Do you like how do you think like that process, so to say, like, did you always work like that?
Not necessarily. I mean, I came out of a pretty straight ahead way of learning jazz. As like, I mean, I started playing jazz in high school, and was really lucky because I got to play in this big band in high school where we were playing like Basie and Duke Ellington tunes and stuff like that. But I didn't have much of a concept of playing free until my brother's saxophone teacher in high school, this amazing player, Don Lanphier, did at one point. I remember he came over to our house and he was like, okay, so let's just play and we won't decide what song we're playing. And we'll just make sound. And I was probably like 15 or 16. So that, a little bit, I had some exposure to it, but it wasn't until I got to college that I suddenly realized like, oh yeah, there's so many other ways of conceptualizing, what a composition might be, besides just like a melody and chord changes. And so it took a while for me to kind of open up to that side of things, but I started to really fall in love with these musicians who could kind of really just go seamlessly in and out of tunes and of like more traditional ways or more conventional ways of interacting, and then into more kind of unconventional ones. Like I really love, people like Steve Lacy and Mal Waldron and like these kind of musicians where they might play a standard, but they also might just do something that's like totally different and get into timbre and texture and all this other stuff,
Yeah, and I mean, it's cool because like at no point at listening to that record, even though like there are some of those moments there, like do I feel like, oh, this is now free, or like I'm not free gets a bad rep sometimes, but like, or not like honoring the music, so to say. So I feel like trying to like write that balance is hard, and it was like awesome to see. Like it was like you're on the edge of your seat, like will this fall apart? Will this fall apart? Oh, and it doesn't, and like it lands. So it was awesome. Like it was an awesome journey to like listen to that record.
Oh, thank you.
But going back to going to your relationship with drummer Alison Miller. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Your record Science Fair. It was like that was the first record I heard after I heard you live. And I was like, whoa, this is so different, because I heard you with Jenny Scheinman's band, and then I heard that record, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah, it's really different. Yeah. Well, I mean, I met Alison in I think it was 2015, and so it's been a little while now. And she, like the very first thing that happened was she wrote to me out of the blue, and I had heard her over the years. Like I knew about her and I'd seen her perform and everything, but I got this message that was like, hey, I'm looking for a piano player for this gig in Iceland, and Todd Sikafus recommended you. Do you want to come? And I was like, yeah, I do, actually. I do want to come. Nice. And, because I just loved her playing, and it was like a dream, kind of. And so we got together and just played, and we were kind of rehearsing her music, like her compositions, and just the two of us, and we just loved it. Like from then on, it was like there was this shared kind of rhythmic sensibility that I think we both have, and just a lot of the music that we like in common. And I really like the rhythmic, it's like she plays in a really melodic way, and I feel like, I think of the piano in a pretty rhythmic way sometimes, and so we kind of meet in the middle, when we play duo, the two of us. But yeah, with Science Fair, we had the idea of, well, let's put together a band and do original compositions and, have different combinations of people we love. And we got to really pick this like amazing group of musicians with Dana Stevens and, Ambrose Akamusuri and Matt Pimmon. And
Nice. Yeah. But so speaking of like traveling to Iceland, I was also like you also studied anthropology and like you spent time in India. You went to Cuba. Like, what is it about like going to different places, studying different cultures, like that to you as a person, even like away from music? Like, what's exciting about that to you?
Yeah, good question. I mean, another one of my interests is languages, and
Yeah.
in high school I was learning Spanish, and I got really excited about wanting to speak Spanish. So going to Cuba was kind of natural, but also,
Yeah.
I mean, I was drawn to the music, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's just something about like all the different ways, because we're all human. We have so much in common,
Yeah.
but also like our differences are interesting, and they're kind of like something that it's a way to connect in a way, like through difference. I mean, that's kind of like I'm not like a practicing anthropologist now, and
Yeah.
it's been a long time since I really was in that world, but something that really drew me to it was just the idea that almost like sort of demystifying, like saying, okay, what is the way that you might see your own culture from an outsider's perspective,
Yeah,
and vice
yeah,
versa.
yeah.
Like, what would be the perspective of somebody? I mean, obviously, there's no way to really ever know what it's like to be in someone else's shoes and grow up in their, family and where they're from and
Yeah.
speak their language. You never really can. But to have a sense of like the things that we take for granted and the assumptions that we make about what life is supposed to be, and what food is and what our belief systems are and all that stuff, like that those things are handed to us. They're not like eternal truths that,
yeah.
There's something about that that's just like philosophically was like really interesting to me. And then just the sense of adventure of like,
Yeah.
I just want to go to somewhere that's far away and like see what it's like here,
Yeah. I mean, speaking of that, like I clearly remember when I moved here the first time I went to an Indian restaurant and I like started eating with my hand, and like everyone around me was like, "You want a napkin?" And
Oh,
I was
that's
like,
funny.
and I was like,
You're like,
"I'm good,
dude, like, no, I'm doing it how you're supposed to do it.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
would you like to learn how to eat with your hand?
yeah." And it was like
funny.
really funny to me when that happened. But you're right, like it's really hard because it's like even New York, for example, like from an outside, like you see it in movies, you read it in all these books, you like hear all of these Frank Sinatra songs and stuff, and you're like in your head, you're like New York, and then you come here and you're like, you know what, it's a big city and it has its big city problems, and
Right.
like it takes a long while to like actually get a feel for what a place is, and
Yeah.
because of that, I feel like a lot of people don't as easily get up and just like go and do stuff, but from whatever I've like tried to like you have been very okay with that. So like where do you think that comes from? Like the ease of like, all right, I'm gonna go spend 6 months in Cuba. Like that's not a normal thing that people would normally be like okay with a lot of times.
Yeah, I wonder about that. I mean, well, part of it is that my mom is from New Zealand, and
Okay.
so my brothers were actually both born there too.
Oh wow, okay.
And so in a way, it's sort of like it felt normal to me that
Yeah.
you would go somewhere like halfway across the world
Yeah.
and spend time there.
Yeah.
And my mom came to the States, met my dad, and then they went. They were kind of like living in San Francisco for a while, and then
Yeah.
they went back to New Zealand, and then they came back to the States. So yeah, maybe that was an example that I had in my life, and the idea of like I never felt fully like an American. Like I was, I felt like obviously I don't have the same markers of being like from an immigrant family that some people do, but I did feel like always, there was always the side of my mom who was like, well, Americans do this, and you should do this instead, and
Yeah.
she never quite reconciled, and she still isn't. Hi mom. She's always like, oh, do you think I have an American accent? Because my sister thinks I do, but people in America think I have a New Zealand accent. So
Yeah.
like and there's a lot of just general things about being American that I'm very happy to disavow. So anyway, I think it was like I never felt a very strong sense of like real connection to, like I love Seattle, but it's not like I felt the same connection to it as a place that maybe some people do who just have like generations of their family being in the same place.
Yeah. Do you feel there is any place, like even like if you found it for yourself, that you feel that connection to?
I mean, it's just interesting right now because I think there's so much, like, we're in a time of migration. I mean, I guess there's always been migration, but just the amount now is so...
It's crazy. Yeah.
It's, the level of just movement of people around. And I think it's probably just going to keep continuing because of resources and water and everything, you know, the way the world is going. So, yeah, I don't know if it'd be a place or if it's more just like a community. Like, I find that, like, I feel at home when I'm with sort of like-minded musicians and artists and people who maybe just have like similar values, I guess.
Yeah. And I feel like it's sometimes hard to, because like if you zoom out, sure, you can like assign values to like, oh, like you were saying, your mom says Americans do this, or like to generalize, and you can generalize on the scale of value too if you really want to.
Yeah.
But it's never true, and like luckily the world is not black and white. Otherwise, it would be.
It's not.
It would be bad.
Yeah.
But so going back for a second, because I wanted to talk to you about your time in India, because it's really like I actually had no idea till I like started doing Murray. I was like, whoa, she went to Sam to teach. How's that for you? Because you were there in like probably like in one of its earliest times, so to say.
Yeah, it was pretty early, I think in its time, because when I first went there and visited, it was not even in the actual building that I ended up in. It was like in a different location. But yeah, I mean, it was amazing, you know, for me, like to get to go to a place where there were all of these students who were really excited about learning jazz and learning Western music in general.
Yeah.
But also had all these different backgrounds themselves. Like there were some people there who had studied, you know, Indian classical music, whether North Indian or South Indian, for a long time. Like some of the students. And one of the things about jazz that we always talk about is ear training and like trying to, you know, understand, kind of be able to sing back what you're hearing. And then if you can understand the theory of it and sort of like use the solfege syllables or sing it using numbers. So to have people who had already spent so many years being able to absorb melodies in that way was like such a cool experience as a jazz teacher. I'd never had students like that before. And I think I've told this story before, but there was this moment where when I was teaching there, Daphne Prieto was also there.
Yeah.
Great Cuban drummer and jazz drummer. And there was a katam teacher, Kartik was there teaching katam. And I remember there was this time when the two of them just started jamming on some rhythm. I don't know what it was, but you know, they just started playing like a free duet together. And it was so cool because it was one of those moments of just like we didn't grow up in the same place, we didn't speak the same language, we have different musical languages, but we can find a way to communicate. And just like the joy of playing, it's like real, like just being in a sandbox and playing like kids would, you know, through sound. And that was so much fun to witness too, because it was just like this is like there's no like I'm just gonna put the sound of, you know, like there's a way that people do fusion sometimes where it's like I'm gonna sample the sound of a tabla on my, you know what I mean? It was like, it wasn't that. It was like an actual conversation between these two masters about the subject of rhythm. So it was really cool.
Yeah, it's like I tell my students when they stress out a lot, I'm like, it's called playing music for a reason. Like,
exactly, It's
not like doing music, it's not working music, it's playing music for a good reason.
Yeah.
But I want to like go back to what you just said, because like all of Indian classical music is like, whether South Indian or North Indian, there's some like written codification that's just there for like, I think archival purposes more than anything, but it's mostly an oral tradition. And when I came here to study, it was like really ironic to me that the biggest blocker to something like music was literally sheet music.
Yeah, oh, that's true.
Yeah, and I think about how all of like, at least in my experience, like institutional music education would fall apart if you take this one small thing away. Like everything revolves around what's written on the sheet. Like, and I feel like that wasn't the case when jazz was first necessarily coming up. I don't know how many people were reading charts. From whatever I could find, not too many.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because sheet music introduces a lot of confusion, I think, into the equation, because it's like, it's supposed to be like a shorthand that helps you to either remember something or to sort of keep track or communicate something quickly to someone else. But it is kind of like, if you imagine, I mean, I don't know how many people actually know shorthand anymore, but like I certainly don't.
Yeah.
But there are people who know how to write notes in shorthand, but nobody would ever look at that and say like, I should recreate this exact thing. It's like, no, you have to like add water and, you know, you have to turn it back into a thing. And you have to reanimate it.
Yeah.
So that's the thing about the sheet music
Yeah.
is like, okay, so how do we reanimate this?
It's a recipe.
It's a recipe.
Yeah.
That's the word.
Yeah.
It's a recipe.
Yeah.
But I will say, though, speaking of Monk, he actually did write a lot of stuff down, and he wrote really specific voicings. And actually, Wayne Shorter also, I got the opportunity to look at some of his
sheet
you
music,
know, his sheet music, and he was doing all of that, like writing all of that orchestral stuff, and you know, really thinking carefully about the voicings and the voices, and not just saying like, it's G minor, you know, like. So there are cases where, of course, and specifically when you think about like, you know, orchestral music with many voices and all of that, it's like, yeah, you kind of need a score.
No, I'm not doubting the use of it. It's definitely useful, but it's because even in Monk's, was it Train's biography? One of their Monk or Train's biography, it was like when Train went to first work with Monk, he would just like play the music to Train till Train got it, and only if he like didn't get it, he would like pull out the score and be like, all right, here, look at this. Because like you said, it does introduce confusion, and everything that's on the page doesn't like automatically translate to like what's happening auditorily. Like so many times, like I know this is true for my music. It's like you give someone a sheet of music, and then you have to also like spend that first rehearsal being like, all right, this is what this written stuff is actually trying to tell you right now.
Yeah. That's right.
There's that gap though, like, and I feel like that's so for you, like when you get sheet music, like how do you interpret that gap in that, like the space that you're supposed to fill, like the water you're supposed to add? Like, do you have like walk me through what happens when you get a chart for the first time in your head?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on the other musicians I'm playing with, or the setting, or you know, like, or sometimes I'll look at the chart and say, this looks like the kind of tune that I think should make me think about X musician or something, you know. Like very typically, if I see something that's like, this kind of looks like it's typical sort of American songbook type harmony, you know, I'll probably interpret it like maybe a walking ballad or a swing feel or something that has, maybe I'll think about Teddy Wilson or Hank Jones or something, you know what I mean? Like I might have certain musicians, or maybe I don't even think of those names, but just like those sounds sort of come to my mind. Whereas if I'm seeing something that looks like there's a bunch of odd meters and there's like a bunch of 16th note rhythms and, you know, which oftentimes like I play in a fair amount of big bands where there'll be like really complicated written out piano parts, like sometimes Darcy's band, or, you know, Darcy James Argue's band, or like recently I recorded with Ryan Keberly and like people like that who are often, or even like small group composers very frequently will be influenced by classical repertoire, maybe classical piano repertoire, and so having that ability to just kind of go, okay, I see what this is. We're arpeggiating different sounds, and this is moving chromatically, and you know, having had the experience of playing classical helps a lot with being able to sort of fill in those blanks when you're reading.
But like moving to the like sound side of it, from like when you get all of those arpeggios and all of that stuff, I mean, I end up thinking about accessibility in like other cases a lot, but thanks to that, like it forces me to think about like access to the music itself. And sometimes I feel like I love odd meter music and I love it as much as the next music nerd, but a lot of times like that music becomes a little inaccessible to the listener. Sometimes, I'm not saying all the time, but a lot of times. And you as a band leader, do you ever feel like the need to negotiate making something for yourself versus making something for putting it out? Or like, it's like, will it get heard in the way you intend? Actually, that's a wrong framing. Like, will it connect to like the people that you wanted to connect to, I guess?
Yeah, you know, I honestly don't think about that very much. I try to just hope that if I do something that I think is like the clearest expression of whatever musical idea. Like if I can try to clarify what I'm hearing, and when I say clarify, I don't mean necessarily that the music itself, like it might sound like a thunderstorm or something, but you know what I mean? If I can get the strongest sense of like, this is what I'm saying, this is the statement, that if it reaches people, then that's cool. You know, I mean, I don't, obviously there's like a commercial value to writing, to thinking like, okay, people like to hear gentle piano music. You know, that's like another thing. But for my personal kind of creative output, I just sort of try to pursue whatever seems interesting to me. And then hopefully that means that people who also find it interesting will keep coming to my shows or whatever, you know, will buy the record. Maybe.
So speaking of which, and correct me if I'm wrong, Eye to Eye was your first record?
Well, actually, I had one before that called Reflection, but I never really did, like, it's available. You can find it some places. But yeah, I did. Yeah, I might be the first one that is, like, easily findable.
So what happened with Reflection? Like,
well, Reflection was kind of like the record I made after college, basically. And a lot of that music I had started working on in college and was sort of, you know, so it's kind of like a student album. And I really am proud of it, but you know, a lot of it is coming out of the influence of Danilo Perez and like other people I was studying with at the time, who I would like to think I remain influenced by. But you know, it's like, it's maybe I was still kind of like trying to find my own voice within all of that on that record.
So wait, so did you go and then take it down?
It's still out there somewhere. I just never, it was so early that it wasn't on like any streaming services. I don't think it ever got up there on any of those, actually. But I have a few copies if anyone wants one.
Wait, so do you ever consider putting it out on streaming?
Oh, maybe I should, I guess. Yeah, I mean, it couldn't hurt. The thing about streaming is like,
yes, please tell me. No. Let's get into it.
I mean, streaming is such a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
It's like, well, the first thing is like, it's not helpful to artists when they don't get paid for their work.
100%.
Like, just period. It's like, we can't afford to just do all of this and then not get paid for it. And like, if nobody wanted to hear the music, that'd be one thing. But if people are streaming it, like musicians who have thousands of streams, like should be getting something. They should be able to then continue to make more music if lots of people want to hear their music. That's not even going into like Spotify supporting, you know, AI weaponry and like, you know, like
all
that's
of that stuff,
all that other stuff, and also just the environmental, like everything that is all sort of connected in the current system that we're in now, like in terms of how the arts are, you know, connected to capitalism and like all of this. But this is like, you know, this is the world that we live in as artists. So we have to sort of figure out, okay, how do we use these tools? And honestly, I don't know. I know I have some friends who are like, okay, that's it. I'm taking all my stuff off of Spotify. Like, you know, I'm pulling it all. I'm going to do a totally different approach. Some people are like, let's just go back to writing, you know, emails and sending out email blasts and are doing our websites and all of that rather than trying to do social media. But I don't know, honestly. I don't know the best solution. I think for like a record like Reflection, it's not like I'm trying to really sell it. Like I can't, I'm not going to sell it now anyway, really. So I guess maybe it should just be up there so that it's accessible. But I don't really want to give the streaming companies
anymore. Than they already have, 100%. But like, so I know there's no like ubiquitous solution to all of this, but like, what's your solution? Like, what's your middle ground like that you've reached for yourself that you're like, okay, I'm okay with this much digital whatever in my life?
I mean, I'm like probably more addicted to my phone than, or maybe just like the same amount as all of us, and like social media and all that stuff. And I mean, I was listening to this interview with Michael Pollan, the author, recently. He's like the author of The Omnivore's Dilemma and like a bunch of other great books. He wrote this book about psychedelics also, and this most recent book that he wrote is about consciousness. And he did this interview where he was quoting, I think, I don't want to say it wrong, but he was quoting like the head of Netflix, the CEO of Netflix or something, who said, "We're not competing for your TV watching time or your movie time. We're competing for your sleep." time or something like that. You know, and
Yikes.
he was also referencing like these I don't want to misquote, but anyway, he was talking about the idea of that all of this social media and everything, they're like sort of colonizing our attention
Yep.
and our brains and like every moment of our lives, actually.
Yep.
And it's so hard to escape it because it's so addictive, that technology,
Yeah.
that, you know, I don't have a good solution other than just struggling the same way as everyone else to try to like, you know, keep a meditation practice as much as I can, try to like put my phone down and read an actual book, and like, you know, I'm just like little steps like that. There's a streaming service called Kobu's, which is like a new service. Do you know about that? Yeah, that is like, I guess, better. It's supposed to be like more supportive of artists.
Sure.
So, you know, I think like just trying to find these like better alternatives is something anyway.
Yeah, because someone was telling me literally like 2 days ago about this one, and I was like, we'll see how long it lasts, you know.
Yeah, it's like we got to try something. You know, we have to, as artists, we have to sort of figure out, okay, let's do, you know, the big scary thing for me is the AI art, the AI or so-called art, because, you know,
AI
like
generated
stuff.
Yeah.
Basically, AI slop. Like that to me, and I know it's might be, you know, a panic that is overblown, but I don't know, because the issue with it is that it's mixing up what art is. Like, art is not the product.
Yeah.
Art is the process.
100%,
you know?
yes.
And so when you say like, well, no, my computer can make a really cool painting. Like, check this out. It's like, no, but I don't care about the actual, you know what I mean? In a way, it's like, so.
Like the product is cool because the process did something to you in the way of making the thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So, like, if that thing didn't happen to you, then the output doesn't signify anything to me, like, as a viewer or listener or any of that.
Right, and like some people say, well, it's the prompts that you put in.
Sure.
But it's like, okay, so my prompt is going to be something like, I want to make a painting that's about how it feels when it's the last day of a vacation and you're worried that you might not see the people you met on vacation ever again, even though it totally changed your life. You know, it's like, how could you, I guess you could ask a computer to make art about that, but like...
Yeah, but it'll never have anything to do with you.
Yeah, it's like, why would you do that, you know?
Yeah, no, definitely. But it also goes like deeper into this idea of like just dilution. I just feel like everything's gotten so diluted over the last decade or so.
Yeah.
Because like I've recently gone off streaming like as a listener. Like my music is still up, but like I as a listener, I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. Like this sucks.
Yeah.
And because like people, like if the song doesn't hit in the first 20, 30 seconds, you can just hit next and you have unlimited next buttons to press to get to something you like. And similarly on Instagram, you can just keep endlessly scrolling till you find something funny or crazy or whatever. Yeah. And similarly stuff to watch, and like, and this dilution is like what scares me the most personally, because I'm just like, while like the slop is gonna turn it into something, like it's gonna do its thing, I just feel like I'm praying and hoping that people will at some point come back to the other side of like realizing that, oh, this is not what it is.
Yeah. I'm worried that our brains are like kind of being changed. And, you know, it's like for people who remember a time before all of this, like that's one thing. Like for me, I can say like, I actually vaguely remember what it was like to wait for the bus and just like not have a book with me and just have to like stand there and wait. Like I actually kind of remember that. But kids now who are born, and I know I'm doing the like, you know, kids these days thing, but I feel bad for them because it's gonna be different. Like who knows what that's gonna be like to have that brain that has never encountered boredom before. You know, or never had to make small talk with a stranger because you could always just bury your face in your phone. You know, like, and I know there's studies coming out talking about how it's affecting socialization of young people and, you know, at the risk of being like a boomer or whatever. Like, you know, it's like, I know that this is, every technology has always caused a panic.
Yeah.
And every change has always been like, oh, now, when written books came out,
Yeah.
it was like people aren't going to be able to remember the epic sagas in their heads anymore. And
Yeah.
it was a panic. So I understand that, like, we have to take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it's happening at such a fast pace now, these changes.
Yeah.
AI from now is different than AI from 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so that's the part that's like, I'm not
100%.
sure if our, evolution that took millions of years or whatever
Can
like,
keep up with that.
could keep up with
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Exactly. That's it.
No,
yeah.
but also like, sure, like every technology causes panic and change and stuff like that, but not being bored, as you said, is so insane to me because like
Yeah.
forget the neuroscience of like, oh, that's when your brain does all of this other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's just in a way like I feel like people like are forgetting what it means to like even want something.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like you always have something like on you, like flicking your brain a little bit, So I feel like my biggest fear is that like people will forget what it means to like deeply want something, to like actually for a second like put away all of this other stuff and like even like just focus on like things like being a musician. Like I know some people like at Eastman who used to practice with the podcast on the whole time.
Wow.
And I was like, how does that work? They're like, oh, no, I have ADHD, so I have to. And I'm like, okay, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
But like, for me, that was like, this would never work if I tried to do it. Like,
Yeah.
so.
I mean, yeah.
Please.
Well, I was going to say, like, something very, like, rote, maybe, if you're doing, like, but even that, I mean, I was
Yeah.
going to say, like, you're playing scales or something like
Yeah.
that, but even then, it's like you really want to be, I mean, I practice scales with, like, a drum, like a metronome or else,
Yeah.
like, Drum Genius or something like
Yeah.
that. And I'm trying, and that makes it more interesting, like, makes
Yeah.
it more fun to do.
Yeah.
But it's also a way of, like, giving me something where I'm like, okay, I want to focus on this and I want to, like I need feedback. Like I want something that's feedback. So playing with this drum machine is like the next best thing to like playing with an actual drummer or something.
Yeah.
But with a podcast, I don't know. That's
Yeah, if you're practicing while listening to this right now, put it off.
yeah. Play your
But-
2-5-1s. No,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know. I mean, I listen to a lot of podcasts and
Yeah.
like when I'm doing the dishes. But that's another
Yeah.
thing that Michael Pollan said. He was like, there's the Zen thing of just do the thing you're doing right now.
Yeah.
Like, can you decide that doing the dishes is important enough that you just do the dishes and that's it?
Yeah, like what's your opinion on like if you go out for I don't know coffee or something with someone and while you're talking like they'll just check their phone.
See, I used to think that was so rude
Yeah.
when people would do that.
Yeah.
But now it's just so normalized. It's become so normalized. So many things I think have changed, like the norms of how things are.
Yeah.
And again, like maybe this is me being middle-aged, but like it feels like the norms have changed more in the last 5 or 10 years
Than they did.
than they did in like the 30 years before.
Yeah.
I don't
But
know.
also like I feel like it trickles down to music too, right? Because like sure there are some people like who are making the music who might be focused or whatever. But at the end of the day, like if you go out to play live or something, like we're doing it for ourselves, yes, but we're mostly doing it for the audience. Like at least to me, like I think of like playing music live like as an act of service of like, okay, this is for me. I enjoy doing it, but I'm doing it for you here who's come. And when people are like either watching the concert from behind a phone because they're filming it or like they're responding to like 7 texts or like just like sometimes just literally scrolling Instagram with their AirPods on while they're at it, like that's happened before. And I'm like, and it's not even like, oh, this is a bad concert or something, I guess, but
Yeah, but then like you could be doing that anywhere, you know. You
Yeah.
could be at home scrolling Instagram.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think like I mean, it is just kind of rude to be on your phone
Yeah,
when
yeah.
like people are performing or
Yeah.
someone's speaking to
Yeah.
you know.
yeah.
Just
But it also brings me, do you watch any of Adam Neely's videos?
I've seen some of them. Yeah.
So there's one
Yeah.
he did like maybe a month or so ago about AI music.
Oh, yeah.
And he ended that with like his hypothesis. And I want to know like your opinion because I found it really interesting, which was that this current era of AI generated music and just like the attention thing is going to make a divide in music similar to cinema and theater.
Oh, interesting.
Like live music will finally become its own thing instead of just being lumped with music, period. Like what do
That's
you
interesting.
think about that?
Well, first of all, I started watching that video and then got distracted. Like probably,
Yeah.
I was.
It's almost 2 hours long.
Yeah, I gotta
yeah.
watch. I would like to watch
Yeah.
the whole thing so that I
Yeah.
can.
Oh shit!
you
Sorry
know,
for spoiling.
be,
it
no, no,
for
no.
you.
That's. I mean,
Yeah.
but yeah, he's so insightful and
Yeah.
like just presents so much great sort of evidence for his arguments and everything
Yeah.
that I really want to watch it. And but yeah, I mean, I think to an extent that divide has already been there, in
Yeah.
a way. Like
Yeah.
there's already something so categorically different about being in the room when a performance is happening.
Yep.
And not to be morbid, but like when you're listening to a recording, you know for sure that everybody stayed alive and did the record. And like I know that's a weird example, but
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I kind of think about that sometimes, that because we never know what's going to happen. And
Yeah,
if you're in a
yeah.
live performance setting, like anything could happen. You're literally on the edge of the
Yeah,
moment, and it's like the thing is literally living in the moment right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas when you listen to a recording, it's the past. It's something
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
been done.
Yeah.
And now you're listening to this kind of literal record of the past, which can be great because it's a way to time travel. And it's so
Yeah,
cool to
yeah.
be back in 1959 or whatever. But,
Yeah.
like there's something like philosophically just completely different about being in the room while the music is happening. Maybe the trumpet player has like a valve that gets stuck or something, or
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Or like
yeah.
maybe something incredible happens
Yeah.
that you never could have expected. Like someone walks in who starts playing and so
Lee
think that was
Morgan's
already
wife
like
comes in
that.
and shoots him.
Exactly. I don't know what it is, why I'm hung up on the idea of like someone dying during performance. Like that's not, it's just because it's like the most, I guess it's
Yeah,
like
the most drastic thing that could happen.
exactly
Yeah,
the most
yeah.
drastic and the most like way that like the deepest way to illustrate that live performance is literally alive, like
Yeah, yeah.
living.
Definitely. So, just to, because we did speak about anthropology and you've been talking about Michael Pollan, and like, I get the sense you're a big reader.
Yeah, I mean, I try to be. It's again like the attention span thing.
Yeah.
It's not what it used to be. But yeah, I mean, I love reading.
Do you feel there are any books that have like directly influenced some of your music?
Yes, I don't know about like specific music, but I was I really love the book Free Play by Stephen Nachmanovich,
Okay.
who's an amazing, like incredible writer and thinker, and a beautiful musician. He's a violist who plays like free, viola performances. And I got to meet him one time. I think he lives in, I'm not going to say where he lives, but I won't, nobody go to his house. But anyway, he's this beautiful author. He writes about all of this stuff that we're talking about kind of like the sacredness of being in the moment with the music. So that book really influenced me. And then also there's a book called The Harmonic Experience that is, I don't know if you've checked out this W.A. Matthew, this author who, The Harmonic Experience is kind of a textbook,
Okay.
and it's about, just intonation and then
Oh,
equal
okay.
temperament and kind of
Yeah,
like
yeah.
ways to build an understanding of harmony from the physical
Yeah.
properties. And it's really beautiful. But he also wrote this book called The Listening Book, which is just this small little kind of series of little prompts, like almost like listening meditations that he gives you.
Yeah.
And that book also has been meaningful for me.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. I'm gonna check those out, especially the free play one. That sounds.
Yeah, Free Play is
yeah.
great. Yeah.
Awesome. And to start to like wrap this up before like the end, I like at this point, like one of the reasons I called this podcast Behind the Beat was of like we play behind the beat and stuff, but I wanted to like take a peek into like all the other things apart from the music that kind of influence the music, so to say, because like
Yeah.
we're a product of like our music is a product of who we are in an ideal world.
Yeah.
So for you, like if you had to like kind of reflect on like this current chapter in your life, like right now, like what do you think is like the most like outside of music thing currently influencing your musical life?
good question. You know, my life right now has a lot to do with kind of family, like changes relating to, you know, my own family of origin, like my husband and I, like our families, like what, like there's something about this time of life, I guess, that is like the moment. I mean, maybe there's different points in your life when you do this, but for me anyway, it's like maybe it's a midlife crisis, but it's like a moment of kind of saying like, okay, I've gotten the chance to do some of the things that I wanted to do, like, you know, study with these amazing musicians. Like I could never have asked for a better, you know, set of teachers than the ones I got to have, to spend time with. And then like getting to travel and play with great musicians. And obviously that's an ongoing, never ending process. But, you know, I feel like, okay, I've gotten to do some of that stuff now. What are the other things that I really love and that are important, and especially in light of COVID, you know, of like the pandemic, which is ongoing, you know, and I have like a health history that makes me a little more conscious, I guess, about that, and, you know, just thinking about the ways that our lives have changed since then, and or since the beginning of the pandemic. And so that also has really put things in perspective, like, okay, given that we don't know what's going to happen, things feel so volatile right now in so many ways. What are the really important things? Like, what do I want to be spending time on in my life?
Yeah.
And so, you know, family and friends and just like my loved ones has become a real important one for me, in a way that, you know, it was always there, but it was never as high a priority, I think, when I was younger, because it was, you know, it's like you're trying to find yourself and have adventures and explore the world, and that's all great. And now I feel like it's a time to come back in and circle up with, you know, people, because we really need that right now. You know, we need to support each other at this moment.
I also feel like when you're younger, you have a different relationship with, like, quote unquote, chasing your dreams.
Yeah.
Which kind of evolves as you grow older.
Yeah, and you think like you kind of feel like you have a lot of time, you know. I mean, you know, I had my medical situation, which immediately upon like graduating from college, basically, I had this moment of like, here's your mortality, you know, wake up call. But still, you know, you sort of feel like, oh, okay, you know, I'll get around to XYZ thing later, and then eventually you're sort of like, all right, well, what do I really want my life to look like, and what things can I let go of? Like what, and a lot of that is also just like what kinds of relationships, you know, what are the relationships that are maybe not necessary or not serving you, or, you know, you don't, it's like, I don't really have time for that anymore. You know?
And it's also, I feel like, a little bit of like, you do achieve some of your quote unquote dreams as you grow older, and then you like, you realize like, oh, this is a moving goalpost, and I'm never going to be like on the other side of it. And I feel like that also impacts how you do things,
right?
And like makes you prioritize other things, like you're saying right now. It's like, okay, maybe it shouldn't be all about this one thing,
right? Because like you said, you realize it's a moving goalpost. It's like, oh no, you're never like done becoming a good musician, you know. It's like you never just do it and then you say like, check that part's done, you know. It's like Sonny Rollins said, you know, there was an interview when he was like 84 or something, and they're like, so you're still playing saxophone every day? You know, are you still practicing? And he said, well, yeah, I'm still trying to get better. It's like, all right, well, if he can say that, then then it applies to all of us.
Yeah, for sure. All right. And before I close it out, I usually like to ask a few rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Okay, first thing that comes to your brain, okay? Favorite restaurant in New York?
Well, I haven't been there in ages, but Ali's Kebab and Curry. Do you know this place?
No, where is it?
It's in Queens, actually.
Oh,
it's in
sweet,
Astoria.
okay.
I think it's still there. I mean, I haven't been there in years, but it's this tiny restaurant that has like, you know, 4 tables or something.
Nice, okay.
And it's so good.
Nice.
It's so good.
All right, I'll have to check it out. Favorite club to go listen to music in New York?
Gosh, that's a tricky one. I mean, the Vanguard is classic.
Yeah.
Vanguard is classic.
Okay.
Mesro is also great.
All right, favorite club to play music at?
Again, gosh, I mean, getting to play at the Vanguard has been amazing. That's happened a couple times for me.
Yeah.
Bar Bayou in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
It's great.
Nice. It's 2 for 2 for the Vanguard, actually. Both guests so far.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
sort of, you know.
All right. Like if you had, like if every time you went to go like listen to music, the same record came on every time, which record would it be?
The same record.
Like you don't have to listen to it 24/7, but every time you went to go play, like press the play button, that's the record that would come on.
Oh my gosh, what an interesting question. I feel like it would have to be like a Cecil Taylor record or something. I'm trying to think of like what has the most information that I would feel like I'm constantly finding something new in it or something.
Like optimizing it.
Yeah, optimizing, exactly. I mean, my Desert Island record often, or like person, is Errol Garner, because I feel like if I were on a desert island, I would need that much joy, and he's always brings joy. But that's a little bit different question than what you asked.
Okay, and finally, to end it, since, and like, actually have like a usually different question, but I'm going to ask you this other one, which is, if right now you had to like just snap your fingers and move to a different place in the world, where would you pick?
Oh, you know, we've thought about this because New Zealand's looking pretty good right now. I mean, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Carmen. I really appreciate it. I really enjoyed this
Ishan.
conversation. And yeah, thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you. This was so much fun. I hope we get to do it again sometime.